Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining me. I'm Sean Morris. This is the Lost Begotten. Blah 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 blah. How y'all doing? Um, Today we're going to be talking about the men of sin. Okay, this is the notes. I'm very big on doing things on one page. That's usually what my videos are. One page of scribble scratch. At least that's the attempted format. I don't know how often I stick to that. So today, what I want to talk about is extremely important. And I thought to celebrate just the misguided nonsense of these fools that were making a prophecy about me on this day. I'm going to point out where that bullshit comes from. Okay? Now, before I get started on the notes, just going to speak randomly for a few minutes. See how that goes. First, I'd like to talk about China. China! Yes. That little Donald Trump reel it's become a household favorite around here. Anytime anybody says China, the girls do a Donald Trump impression. China! Oh yeah, it's great. He has a new a tax plan. He says it's going to be phenomenal. That's his tax plan. Was it something like that? It's going to be huge. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, speaking of huge, back to China. Now, I wanted to make a video telling what I understand to be the true story of China. And I've referred to this in a few videos. But basic gist of this just is this. There is a communist Mongolian China, and there is a Qin dynasty China. Yeah. Sorry for yelling. Okay. Well, the Russians took care of most of that remained after the communist revolution, assassinated the last mainland Qin dynasty emperor, and you'd have to look this up. It's been a while since I did, but I don't think they know what happened to his son. But he had just basically inherited the throne, and then the communists came. I don't think it went well. Usually doesn't when that happens. Hmm. So, basically, my theory is in light of this, there is a historical sense of pride in China. Okay. And I wanted to kind of detail that out. But at the same time, I didn't want to give too much information to the obvious people. Well, moving on. What I've been saying in my videos where I have mentioned China is that there was basically something that I can't tell you that means that Obama is keen on the way to sell a true sense of American cooperation with China. Okay? And that being with a sense of national pride. Okay? Coming from America's black president. Our pride is in multiculturalism, and that includes China. And basically, some of my older videos explain more of that approach and what makes America great and why the US and China should be friends. Well, the fact of the matter is, the US and China have been friends for a long time. We just don't want Russia to know it. And it's been a matter of Putin being mistakenly bold enough to show his true colors and kind of help the sales pitch along. Okay? Well, so, fair warning, this is a much longer list than it looks. And if you'd like to verify this information, you will have a difficult time of it, but you will be able to verify the historical context of the information. You won't be able to verify my interpretation of the data. Okay, you'll be able to verify that the data exists because there are other interpretations of that data readily available. Okay, and all you have to really do is compare old documentaries to new documentaries and know that somebody's changing their fucking story. And when somebody's changing their story, they're not telling the fucking truth, are they? So, the sons of Heth. Now, if you, whoa, where's my, hold on. And my wife had borrowed my Bible and took it to Bible study, and it was on the living room shelf. And here we go. If you look at this map here, either of these maps, the sons of the Heth, the sons of the Heth, son of a Heth, sons of Heth came from this area here. Okay, it says Hazor. Okay, that means Hathor, and that is what we now call Syria. Okay, you have Israel, Lebanon, Syria. All right, this area where Russian troops are right now is literally where the sons of Heth used to come from. But I'll get that. I'll get to that specific part in a moment here. You see, the myth of Genghis Khan was cover for an empire called Tartaria. There's some interesting documentaries on Tartaria, very apologetic towards Tartaria. And, you know, having lived there for a while in a previous life, there were some good people there. Kazakhs, not Mongols. There are now some Mongols posing as Kazakhs, and some Kazakhs that act like Mongols. You could see those at the Winter Olympics in, was it Crimea? Might as well have been fucking Crimea. That other place that I don't give a shit about because, they didn't invade that. They just built a big fake town there, spent a bunch of money. Oh, there's some fun documentaries on that place. What fucking name of it? Anyway, moving on. Sochi. Sochi. Okay, yeah, Sochi. That's, does that sound dirty to anybody else? Hey, baby, let me see your Sochi. No, sorry. I should just stop this and start over. Okay. So, what was going on simultaneously with the Christian Civil War that nobody seems to know about is, and if you're new to this channel or new to watching this video, um, referring through referring to genocides, Hospitalier Templar through Cathar, okay, thing called Johannism, and it's most of the Johannites these days are either hunted to extinction or they keep secret societies. Many secret societies of which you will see mocked on many different Russian funded or indirectly Russian inspired false prophet YouTube channels. That's why they all kind of sound the fucking same. Okay? Well, so during this Christian Civil War, you had the spread of Islam and the Mongolian conquests. Mongol. Mongol is a misnomer. Mongol is actually what the Slavic tribes of Eastern Europe called them. Okay? It's not, I don't know, it's often used derogatorily, but it's not quite in its nature a derogatory term, but it's definitely descriptive, and it's not a good thing. Okay? I think it's kind of a tragic result of racism that a genetic group has been dubbed Mongoloid. And I get that from, well, Oriental Asian people complaining about it, calling the white man racist for that shit. And I fucking agree with them. But guess what? It wasn't white people. It was false Jews from Russian areas. And see, I hate having to use the word Russian because there are a lot of Slavic people who identify themselves as Russian. And why this is, I understand, but I just don't wanna because it's just sad. First of all, to the people that named you, Rus means lie. It means a deception, a tactic of deceit, okay, a ruse, if you will. And basically, the Slavic people are kind of a front. They get used by this, what essentially amounts to a horde, a Mongolian, not really, but a financial horde. Okay. And around the time that the Christian Civil War ended, it took the form of what's called the Golden Horde. And at this point, still didn't have a whole lot to do with the Slavic people. Speaking of Slavic people, how you doing, baby?
Hello.
Oh,
What y'all doing?
this is my wife, Kira.
Hello.
She is from Yugoslavia. And I'm pretty sure that's Slavic because it's got Slav in the name. I'm a caveman, and that's how I learn things. Oh, okay. So, the heir of Genghis Khan, supposedly, that is more known to Europe and actually has some fairly verifiable diplomatic record, was called Timurland. And interestingly enough, there is one conspiracy regarding the fact that, well, okay, Mongol warlord kings were notorious for basically doing whatever it took to keep their graves a secret. And the people that went to bury the Mongolian king would even kill anyone who saw. They'd have a fanned out scouting party. And if they had to go through a village, they would kill. Ooh, I'm remembering something right now, but can't get into that. They would go through and just wipe out anyone who could possibly tell where that grave was going to be. Okay. So it was pretty rare for any of these kings to be discovered. And in June, on June 22nd, 1941, a Russian archaeologist happened to discover, and it was made quite public, the bones, the grave of Timurland. A fact that I would think probably could be, but hasn't been disputed. So, what happened right after this was when Hitler broke the ceasefire and invaded Russia. This was a time when these leaders were, when it's well known that these leaders were into occult type thing. Who knows who this guy really was? But what happened was this golden horde stretched from Moldova, Donbass, Lower Ukraine, Crimea, all the way up through fucking everything, all the way up to basically where the Japanese had invaded China. What happened there was Japanese already kind of occupied parts of China because the Japanese emperor was a Qin dynasty emperor, and there was a couple of parts of mainland Asia that had belonged to them, got taken from them, and they took them back. Excuse me. Oh boy. Been snuggling with a sick child for most of the evening. Oh boy, wonder what's going to happen to me. Oh, parenting. So, moving on from that, these are just kind of background things. Kind of give you a deeper understanding of the rest of this information, which is all relatively recent, relatively easy to verify information. So, the Slavic people know about this because they had it enculturated. I personally think it's a tragedy. I think that Slavic people are better than this. But it remains the case that Westerners, namely Americans, don't really understand what revenge means. Okay? Now, I have said in previous videos that the Italian mafia that kind of lurks underneath the shadows of the family mafias, okay, has its roots and gets its power from the Russian mafia. Okay? And if you know anything about mafia, you might have heard this expression: revenge is a dish best served cold. Forget about it. Okay? But that's not the whole story. Because in the horde, once a culture has been assimilated into the horde, the way the poor Slavic people have, revenge isn't just a forgivable sin. Revenge isn't anything like the way Western civilization understands it. Revenge is a cultural expectation. Revenge is the type of thing that you'll get asked by your sports buddies why you haven't done it yet. He's still walking around. I want to kill him for you, but I thought you were going to do it. These are the types of conversations that go on that Westerners just can't even believe, you know. But it's just a fucking normal thing. Somebody kills one of your people, they get killed back. Eye for an eye. Okay? And it's not like random chaos. This is to them this is how order is kept in a way. Because, you know, police are fucking corrupt and shit. Various reasons like that. Mostly understaffed. Well, now there's two things that Vladimir Putin might want revenge for. One, naturally, being the assassination of his idol, Joseph Stalin, which, according to propaganda that has been put out since Putin took power was a CIA assassination. It might have been. They assassinated a lot of their own people, so who knows? I I don't see anybody calling that shot in America. Sorry, I think it's bullshit. Which means it's so. The other thing, even more obvious, and he's basically said as much. Putin blames America for the collapse of the Soviet Union. Putin blames America for hindering Russia's greatness. Okay? And to him, well, that's a carnal sin. It is unforgivable. There could be no greater enemy in Putin's mind. It is of absolute necessity. Revenge. That's just one of many motivations. But as far as motivations go, it can be the most potent. Now, it's well known that Putin is a despot. It's well known that Putin has pretty much absolute power and has had power for a lot longer than it's looked like he's had power. He's been in different positions, but he's always been the boss. Okay. He was very likely wielding a great deal of power during Boris Yeltsin, but he was appointed immediately after Yeltsin. But if you rewind a little bit and just, look up some various biographies of Vladimir Putin, you'll find out that Putin was a Cheka in the late 1980s in East Germany. And see, what a Cheka does is they're one of the people that specialize in media campaigns, various media, not just mass media, paper media too, that sow division between extremist groups, basically. So for instance, if you watch Vice News, the hooligans and Salafas in Germany, that's representative of something that would be one of Putin's creations. Okay? That's actually the full fruition of one of Putin's little creations. And what happens there is, and this happens, has happened, is happening in Ukraine too, right now. And it's happening in America right now too. And it's the reason why you don't have a voice. Would you like to know more? Yeah, I'm pissed off too. You will be when you hear it. See, what happens is an issue arises in these, that there are people that get paid to keep track of these issues that arise. And where in a normal functioning society, there would be people that speak out about it and people that become leaders in a natural way, and people have an idea, and that idea catches and gains ground in a grassroots way, a real grassroots way. But instead, what's going on is foreign influenced money is getting pumped into fake ideas. Okay, so say for instance the Islamic migration into Europe. If there was just some reasonable people, like I consider most of my subscribers to be reasonable people, and they realized, well, the Quran says exactly what they're doing. Let's have a meeting, talk about this. Let's go visit churches, maybe. You know, spread some awareness about this and see if we can find a reasonable way to solve this problem without causing any kind of xenophobia or violence unnecessarily, you know. But what happens instead is basically, I'll just be frank about it. Russia funds the opposition group. Okay, and then suddenly, this one guy with this kind of fucked up perception on things, an extreme point of view, okay, gets all the money he needs to drown out the voices of all the reasonable people. Then Russia also pays for another guy to get the primary voice of the people who are invading. Okay, in this case, the Salafists in Germany right now. So you have what might be a reasonable political movement and what might be secular Muslims trying to say, no, this isn't how we should act. You have a well funded group of white racists, and you have a well funded group of Islamic extremists. And the Islamic extremists get to say, oh, it's not about what the Quran says. These people are racist. Meanwhile, the people who just want to say, hey, the Quran says that, they can't say anything without being called racist. Now, if the Tea Party hasn't come to mind yet, let me just tell you, there is basically no logical reason why any American company would have funded the Tea Party. Okay? And the reason why is because Obama had this deal. Actually, Barney Frank had this deal worked out pretty damn good. And it was very much in favor of any insurance companies who didn't just want to be dicks. Okay? And what it has done is, stop this. I pass over a lot of things because I assume people are up to speed on things like this. But basically, there was a big problem where people would go to emergency rooms with no insurance at all, and people that had insurance kept on having their rates increase and coverage drop because the hospitals had to charge more and more for the people with insurance to cover the people without insurance. Now we have less and less and less and less and less people without insurance, reducing the overall medical cost for people who pay for their insurance. And while this is getting mixed results in the short term, overall, over a long term, it's a no-brainer that this is going to work well. Um, okay. Anyway, so we have a lot more infiltration than that in this country. We have the same types of groups that Germany has, and we've got a lot more different groups popping up here and there these days, especially like Black Israel, for instance. And it's funny, I don't know about Black Israel. I'm not saying anything about the actual black people in Israel, because Israel's deporting them now. Mm-hmm. Nobody's talking about that. Meanwhile, what's his name? Benjamin Netanyahu just met with Putin at Moscow. Somebody else very relevant to what's happening right now just met with Putin in Moscow. Usually, when you meet with, you know, the Sultan in Moscow, you're there to get a bribe. Oh, and it's usually a big bribe, like a bribe that will help your whole fucking country. Okay, you, you don't know how rich Russia is, man. You don't know how rich they are. It's this whole idea of elites in this country. Please, you think the Koch brothers have like baby elephants and shit? Think the Koch brothers have a little baby giraffe? No, it's a whole different level of wealth. Okay, and our Federal Reserve System, the way it generates wealth is actually a response to the overwhelming resource capacity of the empire that has been trying to destroy us ever since we escaped here. See, America isn't just a colony. It was a refugee colony. And I think people have basically fucking lost their minds because history books just said this one thing over and over again. And while most of it has been proven false, everybody's still willing to repeat most of what these history books said and most of the things that have actually been proven false. So, it's basically a matter of you can look up the greater historical context and see whether the simplistic story actually makes sense. That's called thinking for yourself. Or you could just believe what they told you. Works out so well for most people. All right. So, when Putin came to power, it was in the so called decline. And I'm sure the rhetoric he used to seal his power was basically look at what America's doing. And it was a time when Ukraine and the Baltic states were all declaring independence or had all declared independence. And Putin had a plan to at least exert control or considerable influence over these states, and if not, reconquer them. And again, this mindset that he was experiencing because he was seeing basically what he has said himself to be NATO surrounding him. It's the revenge thing. How dare you? He really he wants to show the world who's boss. Okay, and for no other reason does someone program. their population, the way he's been programming his populations, plural, segregated, different isolated populations, getting brainwashed with different, very scary ideas about America. I recommend Vice News Vissarion, the Russian fake Jesus. It's creeptastic. Okay. So right after Putin came to power, some people that we helped somehow decided they didn't like us anymore. And somehow, some way, they got intel on the location of a brand spanking new destroyer called the USS Colt. And it's funny, this little bitty tiny raft carried enough explosives to blow a hole in this armor plated naval destroyer. Exactly the same size as a ship to ship missile would have. Any cruise missile. Yeah. Pretty impressive little raft they had there. Must have been filled with helium or something. Okay. So speaking of these people that we used to help that for reasons we don't even get told hate us all, want to kill us. In fact, I believe it was we helped them resist occupation from Russia. It was and Afghanistan. Yeah. Well, supposedly they attacked us, not Russia, on 9/11, and that very familiar sized hole blasted by that little raft seemed to have jumped onto the side of the Pentagon. And you know what's really funny about this is that the same submarine that was in the Gulf of Mexico right before the BP Gulf disaster happened, testing their underwater robots, the Kursk, just happened to be off the coast. And there's plenty of Googleable conspiracies about the Kursk having launched a cruise missile at the Pentagon on 9/11. Now, according to old 9/11 conspiracy theory, the most likely source for those planes that hit the Pentagon were NASA. The most likely government institution to have been completely infiltrated by Russia is obviously NASA. Moving on. Oh, but wait, no. See, none of that can be true. None of that could possibly be true. Because Putin called George Bush on 9/11 to say, oh, poor baby. But wait a minute. If you were Putin, what would you do? You just possibly, okay, possibly, speculatively maybe, the most likely candidate, you just did a covert attack on someone. Say you're watching The Godfather. you're watching a Mafia movie and you're trying to predict the plot. Okay? Now, if a bomb goes off at Tony's butcher shop, and then old Francis McCone or whatever the fuck his name is, I'm just making up fictional characters. Old Boss Garibaldi, old Chief Garibaldi from Babylon 5, Battlestar 5, Galacticate calls, and he's like, "Oh, oh, I heard about your butcher shop. Oh, that's terrible. Oh man, I tried to tell you something bad was gonna happen to that butcher shop. I offered my help. I wish you would have listened." Can you hear me now? Vladimir Putin called our fake president. And we all know George Bush was not legally elected. George Bush relied on advisors. And I think it's pretty well known that the man behind the curtain was Dick Cheney. But you see, it's kind of hard to believe that George Bush would be able to be president, being from Texas, actually being from a patriotic family. One could possibly assume, okay, that if he found out, or if, say, Nancy Pelosi or some generals or something, people got together and just kind of told him, we think Russia might have been behind this shit. Or say, for instance, what really happened, which was somehow word got around to Dick Cheney that Bush was going to cooperate with Nancy Pelosi, and Bush's lawyer, the one person who could actually think for him and get him out of this bind, got shot in the face by Dick Cheney. It's all kind of loose, but you see where I'm going with that. The point is, if Cheney had something to hide, and Bush would have inevitably found out about it, would there be any evidence of that? What clearer evidence could you have than Bush's father's friend, longtime family, personal advisor, and lawyer, his personal lawyer, gets shot in the face by Dick Cheney? Ever played Clue? Because if that didn't make sense to you, you should try it sometime. So, where does that put us now? Well, right now we're at a bit of a military disadvantage. We pretty much assume falsely our military superiority in the media. We have a very small numerical advantage in some of the areas where it matters most. But again, that's only assuming that we actually know everything that Russia has, which I think is pretty stupid to assume. History shows consistently otherwise. Okay. And there's a possible plan that, if undertaken at this moment, could be successful. Okay. And this plan involves Russian amphibious invasion of most of Alaska, most of civilized Alaska, at least, where towns and cities are, capital area, and all the oil resources that go along with that, and another beachhead or a foothold combined with a beachhead in New Orleans. Now, we're not doing too well in Alaska, as far as I've been able to find out. But as far as New Orleans goes, once I kind of typed this plan up and sent it to the DOD, a friend of mine, well, a friend of a friend actually, posted a video going, "What the hell?" He was stopped on Clearview, had a cell phone out, filming this train going over the Huey P. Long Bridge that's going south past New Orleans, okay, to the south of New Orleans. And it had at least 200 tanks and Bradleys on it, okay? I was like, yes, power. Well, in addition to that, there's a new neighborhood down there. And it's going to be specially catered to law enforcement and veterans. And I think that's kind of cool. So, doesn't mean we're out of the woods. Just means at least at this point we're moving closer towards being able to defend ourselves. Right now, America could not really very well defend itself. We certainly can't defend Europe. If people want to criticize Obama for what? Not throwing us all into the fucking fire? Grow up. All right. So, recently, in addition to what I've mentioned in previous videos about the largest ever Russian exercises taking place last week on 20 locations, over 100,000 land, naval, and air troops involved. Um, Russia had his meeting with Putin. Putin had his meeting with Netanyahu, but a couple of weeks ago, Putin had that meeting with Egypt's al-Sisi. And I found that very interesting because it looked like al-Sisi had just got bribed. mention that on the news, the ones that me and my wife do. He just looked, I have never had so much money in my life. I did not know such wealth existed. That's the kind of look he had on his face. And you could see Putin was just kind of stop making it so obvious. That's what it looked like to me. You could probably go and if you're clever on YouTube, you could probably find the video of it and look at it yourself. You'll laugh. All right. So today, France decided to sell Egypt, Al Sisi, the guy who just got probably bribed by Putin, these two Mistral amphibious attack carriers. Okay. And they've had, helicopter landing pads all over the top of it and can launch amphibious boats and I think 600, 800 Marines or so at once, right? Well, see, the whole EU community, after Russia was invading Crimea and Ukraine, got up into arms about this sale of these two amphibious battleships, carriers, to Russia from France. And they pressured France into not going forward with the sale. Well, today they just got sold to a guy who just got bribed by Putin. And Putin is now establishing a much greater presence right nearby in Syria. Now, the thing about Iran's influence, it's kind of like China. China! They have two governments in Iran. You have the national government and you have the party government. Just like in China, you have the Chinese nationalist government and you have the Communist Party government. All right, they kind of just overlap each other and they annoy the shit out of each other. Well, the same thing kind of happens in Iran between the government of Iran and the Iranian National Revolution, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, which takes its orders from the guy with the big hat. Okay. Well, Iran, as I have stated in previous videos, gets along with Russia out of necessity, but doesn't trust Russia and doesn't really like Russia. And never has. Historically, the Golden Horde pretty much destroyed Persia. Like, just between the Golden Horde and the Muslim conquest of Persia, there's not much left of what was a beautiful, beautiful empire. So, this whole idea that Iran supplies most of these terrorist groups in the Middle East is basically a way of East and West not starting too much shit with each other. So Iran gets to become a scapegoat. But Iran kind of makes itself a scapegoat, a scapegoat by having all these extreme views on Israel. And all the nasty stuff that eventually comes with that because of the usual anti-American propaganda that gets spewed from guess who? Oh, the people that funded the Revolutionary Guard to begin with. Russia. If you didn't know that, here's your sign. Okay. Communist Party in China? Russia. Revolutionary Guard in Iran? Russia. They both have two governments because it's fucked up and it's not the natural way people are supposed to have societies function. Okay. So this question gets posed a lot, rhetorically and in insulting ways. Why can't Obama defeat ISIS? Well, it's pretty simple. You see, after Crimea happened, and we didn't think we needed troops in Europe anymore because, Russia wasn't supposed to be a threat anymore. The way most people think. Then they took Donbass, East Ukraine. And then a Russian Buk missile launcher accidentally shot down a commercial airline called Malaysian Airlines flight MH17. But that was cool because the next day, this ragtag group of terrorists managed to bombard the shit out of and take within a matter of 24 hours after just kind of slow attrition type attacks on the outskirts. Suddenly they just overran Mosul right after MH17 got shot down. Right after MH17 got shot down. Just a coincidence, I'm sure, right? Well, the fact of the matter is, the Iraqi portion of ISIL is made up of former Ba'ath Party officials, the guys who used to work for Saddam Hussein. Namely, the guys who used to procure weapons through, guess who? Russia. Okay. You think Russia just cut off sales to them because we invaded? No, son. No. They saw how well people were distracted by ISIL and more mad at Obama than they were at Vladimir Putin. And they said, oh, fuck it. Let's invade Georgia too. Because, pesky little southern, like, okay, before the collapse of the Soviet Union, Georgia was this big. Now Georgia's supposedly this little country here, right there in the Caucasus. And, they just couldn't have that little slice of land to themselves and be, a democracy and actually run their own government. Because that's surrounding Russia with NATO. Oh, yeah. Don't even have enough people there to fucking defend the country. Don't even have enough people there to teach them how to defend themselves. Okay? We try, but we barely accomplish that mission. So the idea that we're surrounding them to somehow be hostile to them, it's ridiculous. We defend people's freedom. We're America. That's what we do. Everything else is bullshit. People are selling something. Your soul, if they can. Sorry this video's going on for so long. But like I said, this is kind of important shit. Alright. So, this Russian port in Syria If we go back to the mythological name, the proper name for this Mongolian Russian combination conglomerate clusterfuck of an empire and all its little slave states and satellite states, that's what a real satellite is. You have the word Tartaria. And this word Tartaria, it basically refers to the place that demons come from in mythological times. Tartarus, the land of this spawn, okay? Kind of like hell. Nobody ever really said it was hot there. Well, oddly enough, in the Bible, the sons of Heth relate to Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog have been tied to Tartaria. And this area where the sons of Heth used to come from, that's Syria, right? Mostly Syria. A little bit of Lebanon, mostly Syria. Well, this port that the Russians are using, that the Russians basically own and kind of always have, it's called Tartarus. Not like tartar sauce, like Tartarus. This history is there for you to find. You're just not looking for it. You weren't meant to, but now you've seen this, so that's changed. You don't have any excuse to stay ignorant anymore. All of these things are connected. All of this has happened before. Let's not let it happen again, okay? Now, what I mean by that gets back to the question, why can't Obama defeat ISIS? Well, there's this thing called range, okay? And Russian missiles, at this point, have greater range than most of our missiles. And what this does is provide an area from where Russian warships are 300 miles circumference, where basically it's not safe for U.S. aircraft to fly. And if it ain't safe for U.S. aircraft to fly there, it certainly ain't safe for U.S. troops to land there. So, what are Obama's options? It's a good question. At this point, most people are either unaware of this entirely or are sown by propaganda against our nation's lawfully elected president. So not only is he at a tactical disadvantage, but he's at a severe morale disadvantage. And in addition to this, Russia has just moved, the Washington Post confirmed, a large number of SA-22 surface to air missile batteries. Non-confirmed reports of SA-10, aka Grumble, aka S-300 anti-aircraft, long-range anti-aircraft missile systems. Um, and in addition to a bunch of fighter bomber type aircraft, there has been photographed at least 4 Su-30 flanker aircraft. Now, that just sounds like a bunch of weaponry to some people. But think strategically for a second about this. Russia's there to fight ISIL, supposedly, right? What's with all the anti-aircraft equipment? ISIL ain't got no plane. They briefly took a couple of planes, never got them off the ground. We fucking blew the shit out of those a long time ago. Okay? Like we were going to let them have an air force. What were they going to do with those planes? Really? So Russia is moving in equipment to fight a modern army, to go after what should just be a bunch of guys with AK-47s and RPGs. They're not that. They're Russian supplied. Actually, they're probably all Russians now at this point, because ISIL, oh, went to fucking Europe, didn't it? Hmm. Oh, yes, we're really in the shit house now. So instead of a normal group of rebels like you have in the Free Syrian Army, ISIL, not only professional in their tactics and extremely well armed and well supplied before they ever took anything that Americans gave the Iraqis. And, frankly, we've destroyed most of that shit. And they still just have more and more stuff and more ammo and more giant guns. And, yeah, couldn't possibly be supplied by Russia, right? Russia would never do such a thing. For what reason? No, this is exactly what Russia would fucking do. The little green men in Crimea, okay? Now we have the little green men in Syria. We had the little green men in Donbass. Sure as hell had little green men in fucking Georgia and Chechnya. Had little green men in Yugoslavia. Oh, yeah. Had little green men in Yugoslavia. Almost want to invite my wife back in here to talk about that. But anyway. So here's the deal. I cover extensively on this channel in many, many, many different cryptic forms the greater explanation that connects all these different things. But all you really need to know is that the whore of Babylon is this Heth. Okay? Hathor. She's the dragon's mother. Okay? And if you look at the old temples of Ishtar, Hathor, basically all the old goddess temples, you see a big red dragon and a fat manatee looking bitch riding on it. Either like a fat, ugly manatee true colors bitch or some decked out, fabulous goddess looking bitch. Okay, always one of the two. Same bitch. Okay, one's just more reflective. And, well, these things have to be explained within the context of reincarnation of ancient spirits due to the extensive demonstration of historical and tactical knowledge combined with the motivation of an obvious will to suppress history beyond which normal tactical means would deem necessary. That is, they don't just want us to turn against each other, they want us to lose our faith. They want us to lose our religion. They want to completely erase all hope of that form of that religion ever resurrecting itself. The generals in this country are now saying that Russia is the greatest existential threat that this country has ever faced. But I'm just talking about the Red Scare, right? Hmm. I'm just like old McCarthy bitching about communists, right? You know what the $1 million question is? Did the Mongolian horde start Islam, or did Islam start the Mongolian horde? The answer is no. And the question that you should be asking is, who's behind both? Well, there was a really smart guy about 2,000 years ago. I don't know if you heard about him. He he liked water, wine, little pieces of bread. Uh, oh, okay. Well, what he said was that there was this group of people that you should be aware of. Who was that? The synagogue of Satan. Those who claim they are Jews and are not. They are, in fact, what? Satanists. They have been spreading the destruction of Christianity subtly by educational means for almost a century now, probably over a century. At least they certainly started the plan over a century ago. And, well, they come from this place right in the heart of this golden horde, Mongol, Russia, Islam area. A place once known as Khazaria, now called Kazakhstan. But Kazakhstan doesn't cover all of it. The missing piece is Georgia. And what's funny to me is that Putin looks like a cross between a Mongol and a British Georgian royal. Now, anyone who's familiar with the whole Freemason conspiracies these days has heard about the summoning of the spirit. Well, let's just say, what if Vladimir Putin had summoned the spiritist or the meritist or something? What if he was possessed by the devil himself? Okay, so to understand what a devil is, first of all, stop thinking of all the silly shit that's really easy to make fun of, because it's silly shit that's really easy to make fun of. And you got to think in terms of original sin. Who was created to first manifest that iniquity, that crime against another? Okay. And this is a tree. It's called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it is a family tree. And that tree starts with lust. Okay. And lust is the hidden devil that nobody talks about. And if they talk about it, they don't understand it, because it's not about sexual lust per se. It's not about, oh, big titties. Okay. It's about, I has it. It's mine. It shouldn't be anybody else's. It should be mine. And lust has two children. Those children are pride and deceit. Pride, it's mine because I am great and I have done great things and no one deserves it but me. And the deceit. So I don't care what I'm going to have to do to get it. I will lie and cheat and steal. I will conspire and go to war for it. Which one of these three, ancient and original, sins do you think possessed Vladimir Putin? How many ceasefires have there been? Oh no, those little green men aren't ours. Where did all the synagogue of Satan fucking bullshit that infiltrated this country come from? Well, wherever that spirit was walking in whatever skin it was walking in before. And that's if you believe that those childhood pictures of Putin aren't camera morphology. I think this guy might actually be really old. Like, really old. He might even be Hermetic. He might be Queen Victoria. Hmm. It's funny, but you never know. You never know. All right. The point is, and I do like to be silly, but it's not meant to detract from the greater meaning. And that is, there are many different gods in ancient mythology. Okay? And these are interpretations of the same spirits. Okay? Lust, and pride, and deceit, and several others that we don't need to go into right now because, well, we're at war with deceit. And the thing about deceit is that if you reverse engineer what it would take to be the god of war, what you wind up with is the god of deceit. Okay? It's like this. You have a prideful warrior and someone who fights dirty. Who's going to win if they're of equal power? The person who fights dirty. Well, that's what we're up against right now. In revelationary context, the beast, if you will, that was sealed up for 1,000 years has been released again. And again, I have to go back to the greater context of the lessons that are taught here on this channel. If anybody's patient enough to start from beginning to end and listen to me fucking babble. But I don't try to make my videos easy and concise for just anybody to understand, because to do so would be a complete waste of time. Because at this point in reality, at this point in everyone's spiritual path, either you're going to hear the truth or you're going to reject it. All right? It's really just that simple. That's the Antichrist, people. That's him. If you go look at every single quote, every single text, I'm not going to hold your hand and walk you through it all. I give you the information that I give you. And I expect you to know what you should already know. If you don't already know about that shit, I don't expect you to understand this shit. You're watching the wrong channel. You need to admit that you're an amateur. Go find something else to do. Eventually, if we're all around long enough, you'll be hearing from people who learned from me. But I'm not interested in teaching very small children how to breathe. So that's all I have to say for tonight. This has been my official calling out of the man of sin. If you like this video, click the little thumbs up button. If you want to know how to save humanity, subscribe and get to studying. Nobody said it was going to be easy. I sure as hell didn't. But what you need to realize is that this is all your fault. The inequities of man have caused this. Vladimir Putin had no power until the power of deceit overtook the faith of the American people. Because of your capitulation, I don't want to say bad things have to happen, but you've allowed bad things to happen. And more bad things to be stacked up in a series of events, all to happen very shortly. Now, I didn't have my channel back then, but I was right about Crimea from the first small little reports of little green men. Knew it was going to happen. I knew before they showed up in East Ukraine they were going to take East Ukraine. Okay, called that before it happened. Called ISIL. I know that hasn't been revealed yet, but not on the mainstream media. But come on, it's getting really obvious. Anti-aircraft missiles to fight Islamic State? No, they're keeping us from getting in there. They are Islamic State. Islamic State is little green men. And it's definitely starting to look like I was right about China. China has been on and off at war with the Soviet Union. They've had contested territory between them for a long time now. They don't really like each other. Kind of like Iran. They're neighbors. Kind of got to get along. They really don't want. They're just tired of Russia's shit. Wouldn't you be tired of Russia's shit? I think the world's been tired of Russia's shit for a long time. Anybody who's not drinking the fucking Kool-Aid. All right. But the point is, you need to learn how to blame yourself. Because there's no devil that has the same kind of power that let this deception take over anymore. The only devil is the one that's in that man. Okay? He's just a man just like you. He's a really smart, really old man. And he's obviously a brilliant strategist. But it's up to you as an individual to decide for yourself whether or not you are a child of God and whether or not you have faith that what you can do from here will change the fate of mankind. What you can do by spreading truth, by speaking peace, by teaching people that no, this is not the natural state of civilization, that there is an organized power that seeks to sow us against each other so it can divide us and conquer us. You can help those around you see the world in a whole new way. And if enough people learn the truth, it can't be ignored. What you got to have faith in is that the truth hasn't been around until now. And that now that the truth is here, the truth will set you free. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Ooh, that's a long video.